Hello and welcome to a new video. Today we will be taking a look again at the Royal League, where we left some time ago. And if you have a good memory, you might remember that I started a tournament with 2 losses against Ben and Marta Pescher, then managed to win one game against Gutemedralla. So as you can see in the standings, I'm at the moment sitting at 1 win and 2 losses with 2 points. Not an ideal start, and what also is the case is that there's one game that also finished that I won't show against Payada, where I also lost. So I am actually already on at 3 losses, meaning I am in a tough position and really need to get some wins in, otherwise I'm in big danger of getting relegated. However, the opponent that we of the game that we are taking a look at today is vanishadow, and vanishadow had shown some really great results so far in this tournament. This season is the third season of this tournament, and in the first 2 seasons, vanishadow managed to win. So he's the undefeated champion of this tournament so far. As you can see, also already in this season again had a very fine start, but now I really need a win against him, and it will be a very, no, very difficult task. So now I hope you're excited for the game. However, before we are going to take a look at the game, there's one thing that I want to show you very quickly, because since a few days, or maybe even 1 or 2 days, there is actually an official Through the Ages website for the click rating, which is very nice, done by Ruby. And he is now officially taking over the click rating from Payada, the calculations, and he has created a website for it. And I think that he has done some very nice work here. So you can see that is the rating. Sadly, as you can see, for me it's looking not that great at the moment. I have a series of very bad results at the moment and dropped some points in the rating, so not ideal for me. But I think that is a great tool. Having this rating now as a website, as you can see, you can take a look at the overall rating, but you can also take a look at the 2-player, 3-player, and 4-player ratings. And there are some other things that you can do. For example, you can search for some specific players, even for multiple ones, and then compare them to each other, which is very nice. For example, if you're seated into an international or world championship group, you can just write all of those players down, and then you see all of them compared, see if they are maybe especially strong in 2 or 3-player games. And to show you that, I will actually, even though the tournament has not started, we will take a look at the clicker rating of my opponents in the Royal League. As you can see, I typed in the name of all of the 8 players in the current Emperor division of the Royal League, and now we have all of the 8 players compared. So you can see, even though I dropped some ratings, I am still just at the top, only one conservative rating point before Marta Pescher. Payada also still has a very fine rating. We have Saru, LCFYX, vanishadow, Gutemedralla, and Ben. However, those are the overall ratings, and of course you know that the Royal League is a 2-player rating, so for that we can now very nicely take a look just at the 2-player ratings, which is of course a lot more relevant for this tournament. And there we can see that I'm still on top. I'm actually in the 2-player rating, still very nicely ranked. I have a very high conservative rating. Marta Pescher is the second highest rating out of us 8. Here on the left, you can also see the rank that the player have in the overall rating with all players. And then we can see vanishadow, who in the overall rating was only at position 76, is in the 2-player rating on position 5. So here we can see that he is an extremely strong 2-player player. Also Saru and Ben are now out of the sudden a lot better ranked, so we can see that we have some 2-player specialists here, and Payada is a 10th position, and then maybe the players that are a bit behind the 2-player rating are LCFYX and Gutemedralla. So that's just one example what we can do with this. And Ruby also has the plan to add some more features, and just a very nice thing. I think you can have a lot of fun of doing some comparisons with this clicker rating website, and that is why I wanted it to show you. And but now, without further ado, we will be taking a look at my game against vanishadow, where I really need to score a win, but I have to do it against only the player who is the only one so far who has won this tournament. And as you can see, I'm playing in the first position in this game. First of all, we can take a look at the leaders and wonders. And we can see that there is some culture synergy. We have both Bach and Shakespeare, who are maybe the most powerful culture leaders in two-player games, or in general, if you can manage to pull them off. Then we have Fleming in H3, also Chaplin. There's no Hollywood, however, also no Gandhi to hide behind, but there is at least the internet. We have also Darwin as a culture leader. We then have Einstein, Marie Curie as some more economic leaders. Churchill is there, also Mandela. We have Napoleon maybe as a military counter, Newton as a very strong economic leader, but we also have the Suez Canal and Cook, so maybe a colonization game could be interesting as well. There's also the ocean liner service. In H1 we have Forbidden City and St. Peter's Basilica, so the two happy face solution wonders. You can also get a happy face from the Great Wall. Then there's the Silk Road, which can potentially be very interesting. We have Columbus, who can be nice with the Suez Canal and Cook being the game. Michelangelo with St. Peter's Basilica could potentially be interesting. Saladin is very strong in two-player games. We have no military action leader, but Genghis Khan and Barbarossa can help a bit with the military. And then we have also Leonardo. For my first pick, I think it's completely clear what I have to do. I just will go for Confucius, who is probably the strongest leader in two-player games. I can just pick him, and there are two very strong wonders coming down the road, the Pyramids and the Acropolis. The Acropolis in two-player games is of course very strong, especially if there are some culture leaders like Bach and Shakespeare in the game, so I don't want to commit to the Stonehenge, and I just think Confucius is clearly the best option here, so that was a relatively easy pick. I then thought that probably vanishadow will go for the Engineering Genius, because probably he also doesn't want to commit to the Stonehenge with those wonders coming down the row. That means now I'm in a situation where I have to decide if I want to choose which wonder I want to have out of those, but then I have to pay 2 civil actions now, or if I will let vanishadow choose but get then the one that he maybe thinks is the worst for me, or I will get them, but for 1 civil action cheaper. So it's not a question, do I want to choose? The Acropolis, of course, can be very strong. I thought about if I maybe just want to take the Acropolis for 2 civil actions, just having that wonder being very nicely prepared in case that game will become a very peaceful game, and it could be a nice option. But I think the Pyramids, with vanishadow having the Engineering Genius in hand, with that there being a good chance that with the help of some developments, he is able to finish that quite quickly, gets a quick jump start to his economies very quickly on 5 civil actions. I think that would also be quite strong for him, and with that I was not willing to pay 2 civil actions for the Acropolis. I think it definitely could be an idea, because if I now go for Confucius, build a mine, increase my population, then the last civil action I can't use that effectively anyway, because I can't take this urban growth. If I take this, then the Pyramids will be on the discard spot on vanishadow's turn, meaning that he can just take the Acropolis and I will be without any wonder. So I have to take one of those yellow cards. So maybe I can just spend 2 civil actions to take a wonder this turn if I then can use the 1 civil action that I get now for taking the wonder cheaper at the next turn, if that is now not really useful. But at the end I still went for this, because the stockpile I think is still a somewhat fine card. I thought that maybe vanishadow goes for the Acropolis now, but it definitely could also be he goes for the Pyramids. Will be interesting to see what of those wonders he will prefer. But I thought that maybe I will rather get the Pyramids, and with the Pyramids the stockpile can be interesting, because if there's development of markets or crafts revealed and you take the 2 additional resources, then the stockpile maybe allows you to finish the Pyramids 1 turn quicker, and also maybe starting to snowball a little bit. So I thought at the end maybe it's not too bad to have the stockpile, who knows, maybe there's even an early Silk Road in the row and out of the sudden the stockpile becomes a complete powerhouse. Now I was very interested to see what vanishadow will take for a wonder. Will he go for the Pyramids? Will he go for the Acropolis? He first of all goes for Sun Tzu. It's the only leader available for him for 1 civil action, maybe a little bit of a counter against Confucius. Now he maybe will be able to push some strength events. He builds a mine and he will go for the Acropolis, so he values that wonder quite highly, as you probably should in 2-player games. He is a 2-player specialist, and here we can maybe again see proof that the Acropolis is definitely very highly regarded by the top players in 2-player games. That means that now the Pyramids will be left for me. There is actually also a Great Wall coming down the row, which I could potentially consider. And first of all, I will see the Scientific Breakthrough into the deck, opening the development of Great Roots. And there's also the Forbidden City coming down the row, which could be interesting to go for. It's a bit more costly than the pyramids, so maybe I can't at the beginning snowball that quickly, but I think the two ignored unhappy workers can maybe make up for it on one hand. On the other hand, there is of course the problem that if I wait for it to fall down for me for the next turn and don't take the pyramids now, then the question is what do I do with this turn? If I would have something really useful to do now, and then I think it could be considered to maybe go for Forbidden City as my first wonder. But with that, I think I just go for pyramids. I can build a lab, take the pyramids, increase my population, and already played a stockpile, just using my civil actions relatively effectively. I don't want to take any of those cards for 2 civil actions. There are 2 copies of irrigation. There's no need to grab this for 2 civil actions. And then if I don't want to grab any of those cards, I don't think it's a nice idea to wait for the Forbidden City. And even if I have something to do, the pyramids being cheaper is definitely a nice advantage and maybe helps me snowballing a bit quicker with getting the civil action maybe quicker, and it also costing 1 civil action and 2 resources less. The Great Wall of course can be interesting, but I don't want to commit myself to a bit of a military heavy game. Of course it could be nice maybe as a counter to the Acropolis, but I still wanted to just get a nice economical value of the pyramids. I will draw 2 cards, the Border Conflict and the Enslave, so maybe I will just seed the Enslave into the deck at the next turn as a Confucius event. Vanishadow will now increase his population, builds a lab, takes the irrigation, and then builds 1 step of the Acropolis. Here we can see that, similar to me, he doesn't really care about increasing his population, because he could have just increased his population, having a free population, but yeah, then he would miss out on 1 safe food. And even though we both have leaders where we want to seed, so maybe there could be 2 events revealed, even with that he's still just willing to accumulate an additional food instead of making sure that he has a free population, even though he has the Acropolis, where an additional religion gives you also a 1 science discount for a government form. So it definitely, with the Acropolis, with Confucius and Sun Tzu being there, definitely could be considered, but he doesn't care about it. Maybe also wants to prepare for taking a new wonder at the next turn. The Forbidden City and the Silk Road are coming down the row. Maybe he wants to be prepared to take one of those wonders, which also could be a reason, of course, to build a step now. It's my turn. I indeed seed the Enslave as a Confucius event, and the event revealed is the development of warfare, so Vanishadow gets a bit punished for not having made sure that he has a free population. I will be able to take the warrior, can increase my population thanks to the 1 food that I got from playing the stockpile at the turn before, so it probably has already done some nice stuff for me. Sadly, I'm missing 1 resource to finish the pyramids, because the event revealed was not development of crafts earlier on, but instead development of trade routes. Now I have 3 civil actions left, and I think there are some nice things that I could take. First of all, there's of course an Engineering Genius available for 2, which could be nice on the pyramids, and also could be nice to maybe take it away from Vanishadow. Maybe he wants to finish the Acropolis anyway, and also I think there are better cards on the 1 civil action area, or maybe not necessarily better, but similarly good, and for 1 civil action cheaper. First of all, I think the breakthrough is just a very nice deal to get for 1 civil action, so I really want to take this card in hand, and I also really want to take the Masonry in hand. First of all, I think it's quite a strong technology in 2-player games. I can use it immediately on the pyramids, so using that on HA wonder is quite nice. I have some additional science from Confucius, from the events coming, and from the breakthrough that I've just grabbed, so I can easily afford the 3 science cost. And there's the Silk Road coming down the row, meaning at the next turn, if the Vanishadow doesn't take the Silk Road away, I might even have the chance to just finish the pyramids, take the Silk Roads, and then with the Masonry, the Silk Road is just such an extremely strong wonder. So I really want to take the Masonry, so those 2 cards were relatively clear. For the last civil action, there was a bit of a question. I could just maybe develop the Masonry or build 1 step of the pyramids. Both could be perfectly fine, preparing myself to maybe finish the pyramids at the next turn, then maybe being able to take the Silk Road while still having some civil actions left. There's an Iron coming down the row, maybe there are some interesting cards in the row at the next turn, but there's also Columbus in the row, and maybe you're thinking, I don't have a colony, why do I care about Columbus? I just think if you have a leader that is fine to have, an HA leader that is fine to have for the whole of H1, and there's a Suez Canal and James Cook in the game, that alone makes Columbus just potentially so strong that I'm now very often willing to take him, even if I don't have any colony in hand, and so also in this game I at the end was willing to go for the Columbus gamble. I can take now a leader for one civil action, which potentially can be very nice for me, maybe allowing me to go for Suez Canal, just allowing me to keep Confucius and then getting a very nice transitional leader, even though I don't have a colony. Hopefully I will draw just some colony, and even if it's not the best one, I still think Columbus can be very nice then, and so at the end I was willing to take him for one civil action. I could have just waited, maybe gotten Saladin later on, but if I then elect him at the end of H1, the few civil actions that I get out of him might just not be worth as much as was compared to what Columbus is giving me. But I think it could have been also very fine to not go for Columbus, just develop the Masonry, giving me a bit more freedom for my next turn. At the end, I then decided to go for Columbus and just maybe potentially be prepared for the Suez Canal. I again draw two aggressions, which I potentially can seed to the next turn. Vanishadow seeds as well, opens the development of markets, and he will go for an interesting turn. First of all, he takes the resources from the development of markets, will now finish the Acropolis, will take the engineering genius, which makes sense, but then he went for a move that definitely surprised me a little bit, and I had to think about it first, what are the reasons to actually go for that, and he now, with his last two civil actions, just went for the Forbidden City, meaning he will end his turn with corruption. He could have, for example, just increased his population 2 times, getting those civil actions out of the way, and then being able to get out of corruption. So why does he go for the Forbidden City here? If I would be playing against a weaker player, I think my first instinct would be to say, what are you doing? That is maybe a bit weird. But with playing against vanishadow, who has won this tournament the first 2 times, then I think it's rather interesting to take a very close look and think about what are actually the reasons to go for this. And I think there are some reasons when you take a closer look. Maybe you can also pause at this moment and think about yourself what might be reasons to go for the Forbidden City at a cost of corruption here. One reason might be Barbarossa, who is coming down the row. Vanishadow has Sun Tzu. He knows that he's guaranteed to get Barbarossa at the next turn. And with maybe having a tactic for Sun Tzu in hand, and then now having a lot of food saved up with not increasing his population to get out of corruption, Barbarossa might be a very strong option and might allow him to actually put quite a bit of pressure on me. So that is one reason, I think. The other reason is that I think the Forbidden City synergizes quite nicely with the Acropolis, because with the Acropolis and the science discount, you really want to go for an H1 government form often to just make sure of this, make use out of the science discount as quickly as possible. But when you have an H1 government form, then it can be really nice to have an additional civil action. So then the Forbidden City comes in, and also with the ignored unhappy workers, it is maybe possible to build more urban buildings, again making sure to get an even higher discount maybe out of the Acropolis at some point. And so that I think might also be part of the reasoning, and maybe in 2-player games it is just very important to have some additional civil actions. There are not that many sources, 1 copy of Monarchy, 1 copy of Code of Laws. If you miss out on them, you are in danger of being just stuck on 4 civil actions, so maybe just because of that, having the option to get an additional civil action, even if it's a bit costly, might also not be too bad at the end. So I think a very interesting move by vanishadow. I think I probably wouldn't have gone for it, but it might be a situation where he's just even more experienced in 2-player games, and maybe sees something that I wouldn't have seen. Now that he went for the move, I see definitely some reasons, but still an interesting choice. And it will be interesting to see where it will lead him now. Now it's my turn. I will again push one of those aggressions as a 1 science Confucius event. The development of planning is revealed. There are some interesting options. The development of civil life, agriculture and science, and I think the best here for me should be the development of civil life, allowing me to save 1 civil action and 1 science with developing the masonry. Then I will just finish the pyramids, getting the additional civil action running now. After finishing the pyramids, I'm out of corruption and I have 3 civil actions left, and the question is what to do now. There is the Silk Road, and I think it could be very nice to go for it. Actually, I have just enough resources with taking the resources from the development of markets to finish it immediately the next turn if I want to. And then I have the Silk Road going. I have some additional science production. I can get 1 additional science out of the Silk Road also immediately with having this breakthrough in hand as soon as I develop a technology. So I think the Silk Road is just very strong here, and ideally I would like to go for it. When I go for the Silk Road, the question is how to spend the last civil action. The iron, of course, could be very interesting, allowing me to maybe before finishing the Silk Road just start with going for some iron upgrades. But I also really thought about maybe going for the drama, because there are some culture leaders. There's Bach having some cheap dramas to build, especially with the masonry in combination. Could be very nice, could maybe allow a very strong leader option for me. So I could potentially miss out on the iron. Maybe I can just finish the Silk Road first and go for the second copy with hopefully vanishadow taking this copy of iron. I think that could also be interesting. Maybe it could, I actually thought it could be interesting to have both of those cards, which is why I thought maybe it could even be an idea to just take both and not go for the Silk Road. I also thought about just taking the iron now, developing it and going for an upgrade, starting a little bit of an upgrade. I think would also be very interesting. But at the end, I just thought that the Silk Road is maybe just, no, I just think it's extremely strong, especially with having the masonry, and with that I wanted to go for it, and then I went for the iron, just making sure to have this copy now, and I think it can be an advantage to get those upgrades going already at the next turn, starting the resource production a bit earlier. It could maybe be fine to go for the Silk Road first. But I thought maybe just going for the iron first could be quite interesting potentially. There's also one other thing that we maybe should take a look at this turn, and that is that there are both copies of knights in the row, and vanishadow has the option at the next turn to deny knights from me, and he has Sun Tzu, and maybe made a move that could lead him into Barbarossa with saving some food up. So with that, maybe it could also be considered to take one of those copies of knights for 2 civil actions, but it might also be an investment that at the end doesn't do that much, because at the moment I don't have a knights tactic, and I just don't know if vanishadow even has the plan to go for knights. It definitely might be. The turn that he did at the last turn could be an indicator with him valuing to save some food up. But at the end, with all of those interesting cards being available for 1 civil action, I was willing to miss out on the knights, maybe being able to go for swordsman, maybe being able to go for monarchy and getting a third military action at the next turn. There's actually monarchy and code of laws coming down the row, but with both of them staying on 2 civil actions for vanishadow, I thought that I definitely will get one of those copies at least of those cards at my next turn, maybe even both, with also knights and some other interesting cards being available for 1 civil action for vanishadow. So that is my turn. I will draw 2 cards, and I was very, very happy, of course, to see that I draw the vast territory. It's of course quite lucky going for Columbus and then afterwards drawing such a colony. But of course I was very happy, and it might really help me out in case the game might get a bit military heavy. The additional population could be really helpful then. Also, I have the heavy cavalry tactic. In case the knights are not denied, I might be able to go for this tactic. I sadly can't go for Genghis Khan with having already Columbus, but with having drawn this colony, I was not really sad about this. And no, vanishadow Seeds opens one of my Confucius events. He will indeed reveal the medieval army tactic. He will indeed go for Barbarossa, will increase his population, and then he can, with his last 2 civil actions, go for knights, denying me the knights, develops the knights, and goes for 1 Barbarossa activation, getting me out of corruption, going up to 7 strength. He has enough food saved up to go for 2 more Barbarossa activations at the next turn, going for second tactic, and out of the sudden he is extremely threatening. So, no, that is of course quite dangerous potentially, but he has only 2 military actions, so he isn't really drawing a lot of cards. I have already drawn a lot of aggression, so I was hoping that maybe there's a chance that vanishadow doesn't have one, but of course going for this play is a bit of an indicator, and also him going for this line also means that actually both monarchy and code of laws will be available, and even both for 1 civil action for me, with having quite a bit of sign saved up that I think is also quite strong for me. So it is now looking quite threatening, but I think I also get the option to really build up my civilization quite nicely. Now I just have to be careful to build up my civilization in a way where I maybe can defend myself, at least still somewhat, against potential aggressions and wars later on. vanishadow ends his turn, doesn't draw any cards, and at my turn I will again seed again another aggression. I don't want to push any of the other ones. I could have also just seeded a tactic, of course. That doesn't do a lot now after I've missed out on the knights. The one event from vanishadow is revealed in new deposits, which is nice, so there's no bad strength event from him, meaning the next 3 events are safe for me with the scientific breakthrough and another Confucius event. Also I have some additional resources now, I will definitely go for the monarchy. I think the third military action is just extremely helpful for me to defend against vanishadow from potential aggressions, and also of course the civil action, and will be nice with having the pyramids. The government form will be a nice long-term solution before developing the monarchy. I wanted to build a step of the Silk Road, being able to use the breakthrough, because using the breakthrough makes it that I can even go for the Code of Laws at the same turn, going up to 7 civil actions, and then just finishing the Silk Road with the masonry to get out of corruption. With 3 science production, the help from Confucius, and of course also the events coming, I have enough science saved up to go for iron at the next turn, maybe for warfare in case stuff gets very dangerous. The warfare could actually be also a helpful card for me. I miss out on Swordsman, which is a bit dangerous. Maybe vanishadow could potentially deny the second copy, and it could get dangerous, but I was willing to take that risk, because I think this turn is just very strong, and I wanted to have the monarchy, but also deny the Code of Laws, and of course it's also quite nice to have it for myself, because I just think it's very nice to keep your opponent in low civil actions in 2-player games. So I go for this turn, but as you can see I'm actually only at 2 strength, meaning at the moment I can't defend myself. So I actually take quite a bit of a risk with this line. I could have, for example, gone for swordsman, developed them, but I just think with all of those lines where I go for something like this, I just miss out on a lot of value, maybe even that much that now getting hit by an aggression wouldn't even be that bad compared to maybe going for swordsman, missing out on Code of Laws and monarchy, on finishing the Silk Road, maybe, depending on how exactly I play it. So I was willing to go for this, because first of all there's a chance that I will draw a new colonization card when he shadows only 2 cards in hand. Maybe he doesn't even have an aggression available, and even if aggression hits me, it's only an H1 aggression, hopefully I will be able to recover from it. But nonetheless, I was very happy to see that I actually do draw a colonization card. That definitely did make me feel relieved quite a bit. So I'm now prepared for an aggression, and have now just a relatively powerful civilization with decent science production, a lot of civil actions, 3 military actions, and I was quite happy about this. Now I have to just be very careful to not get too damaged by whatever vanishadow will be doing. Vanishadow Seeds opens the kidnap, we both gain 1 additional science. He has some issues to get out of corruption, but he has a wonder, which is very helpful for him to do at the end, get out of corruption. And of course he also has Barbarossa, so he can just do some activations, and that also of course is a very efficient way to spend some food and resources. He has 4 food and 3 resources left after building the Forbidden City, meaning that it is just exactly enough to go for 1 knight and 1 warrior with Barbarossa. Interestingly though, after taking the rich land, he will only go for a knight and not a warrior, which I think is a very big indicator that this one card that he has in hand is actually no aggression. Otherwise I think he probably would have gone for the warrior immediately, and with that making it relatively certain that you can maybe pull an aggression off at me at against me at the next turn. So with that, I was hoping that maybe I am still relatively safe. The top event is also still no strength event, so I was hoping here that maybe vanishadow goes for a military investment where he just doesn't maybe get immediately a lot of return out of it, and with my strong position maybe you can just set something up that strong that even when he can at some point pull an aggression off, or maybe a war, I will still be in a strong position to continue the game. Now it is my turn. I will again seed with Confucius, and I made a decision to seed a cultural heritage. The scientific breakthrough is revealed, giving myself 1 more science than vanishadow. And this turn, as you can see, I will actually go for the warfare, because vanishadow very easily can just go for another warrior, and I think having even another military action, 1 strength, can just be very useful. I have some surplus science. I don't need to save up science for a government form with already having the monarchy and that many civil actions. And with the electing Columbus this turn, I actually have enough science to go for iron and the warfare this turn if I want to. So with that, I think the warfare is just a very nice way to make me a little bit safer. I will take it, I will develop it, I will go for Columbus, I will also go for the iron this turn, just spending my civil actions effectively with going for some upgrades this turn. Otherwise I could just take a bunch of cards, I would have problems to get out of corruption, so maybe it's a bit risky to spend a science now. I might be missing 1 science to go for swordsman at the next turn potentially, unless there's maybe an event revealed from the 1 Confucius event that I've seeded, then it might be possible, but I just thought that again is sets myself up quite nicely. vanishadow will again only draw H1 cards at his next turn, and even if he then goes for an aggression in 2 turns or something like this, because this turn I again will be safe with going for the warfare. I am, with my 2 colonization cards, I'm safe from an aggression now. I was just hoping that I won't get damaged that much, even when vanishadow goes for an aggression in 2 turns. However, to make myself a bit safer, I actually think I have to do a hate draft here, and it's maybe something that you don't often hate draft, but I think here it might actually be necessary, and that is the Theocracy. And no, I think the Theocracy just offers some things that vanishadow would really like to have in this position. With Barbarossa, I really want to have an additional military action. Happy Face maybe is not that much needed immediately, but at some point, if he maybe goes for some food production, it could still be quite relevant. And also the 1 additional strength. He has the Acropolis, so it would be very cheap for him and would just a lot more easily make it possible for him to apply a lot of pressure on me, put him at even more strength, and well, more importantly, allowing him to draw even more cards, and with that making it more likely that he maybe gets his hand on wars or aggressions. So I think that in this situation it is actually a good move to deny the Theocracy, something that you maybe don't see that often, but I think there is some threat that if maybe the game goes in the completely wrong direction early with the military push, that the game can be decided in H2 already if things go very badly. Maybe you remember the game from the World Championship from 2023 against Swin, where he resigned in H2, and also I think in one of the either in the first or second season of the Royal League at a game against Marta Bashir, where I actually went for Theocracy myself, had I think Genghis Khan, Great Wall, Theocracy, managed to go for a lot of strength, got some cards thanks to having the additional draws with the additional military actions, and then the game was also basically over in H2. I think in this particular case, I'm not in danger of the game being completely over, but I think the Theocracy gives vanishadow some potential to really escalate the game into a military heavy direction, so I wanted to deny it here, and with my last civil action I will then increase my population. Could also take the urban growth, a very fine card to have, especially with the Silk Road, but I don't have, I mean, probably there are no reds in there with vanishadow going for Barbarossa, but I still thought it could be nice to maybe just already increase my population this turn. Maybe it could be fine to take the urban growth, but I don't have a project to use it on immediately, and so I at the end just increased my population. Keep the colonization cards, the vast territory in the tactic. I will even draw another colonization card, which is nice, maybe allowing myself to relatively easily make sure that I can defend myself. And also another colony, with the Suez Canal being the game, me having Columbus, it could be interesting to maybe seed it into the deck, or maybe have it as a backup colony to make sure that I can take the Suez Canal even if it is early. vanishadow seeds, the raid is revealed, giving myself 1 additional science, which is actually quite useful, allows me to go for swordsman or cartography the next turn. Now there may be some strength events coming, so I was quite happy and also maybe a bit lucky to see this event revealed first. vanishadow will now go for the irrigation. With Barbarossa, of course, having some additional food production is really nice, but he also will start going for 1 iron upgrade, getting a bit of resource production started, but he doesn't have any additional science production, still needs a government farm, so he has some issues, some problems that he needs to fix on one hand. On the other hand, now with using Barbarossa, he is at 13 strength and is also looking quite threatening. My turn H2 will start, and I will just use Columbus immediately, getting the vast territory, having a lot better situation with my population, having now some free population that I can put into the military. I could just go for swordsman potentially, start building some, but I actually made a different, had a different idea, because as you can see I have the monarchy, the H1 government form, and I have all of the H1 blue technologies apart from the cartography, so I have a very nice opportunity here to go for a full full H1 government and blue technology civilization, and that is of course an opportunity that I don't want to miss out on. The cartography also gives me 1 additional strength. There is a Suez Canal and Cook in the game. I am already with just the 1 colony from Columbus and having the wealthy territory in hand. I am somewhat nicely set up to already go for Suez Canal. If I draw more colonies, the cartography could be very nice in that regard. And with not going for the swordsman, I don't commit to building swordsmen, which could potentially be nice in case I draw something like fortifications, mobile artillery, hussars. It could be nice to not have already committed some science into the swordsman. And so at the end, instead of going for swordsmen, building some of those, I made sure to get enough strength to defend myself against vanishadow. With going for the cartography, I will go for the cartography, develop it, and actually build 2 warriors, which is of course somewhat costly. Maybe it's a bit annoying. Maybe I should have just built a swordsman directly and an upgrade or some stuff like this. But I mean, if I indeed will seed some colonies, then those warriors, I might have a good chance to send them away again. And I again don't commit some science into swordsman, of course, because I committed into cartography. So it's the question if it is really the best thing to do. However, I thought maybe with vanishadow going for Barbarossa, it could also be that he has seeded a colony, because he can maybe just build an army from Sun Tzu and easily rebuild with Barbarossa. I thought it's potentially possible that actually he has seeded another colony. And with that, I also thought maybe it could be nice to have the cartography, not leave it to vanishadow, to allow him to maybe set up for something nice with colonization. And so I just went for it myself, built those 2 warriors, because now I have just enough strength so that I can defend myself with having, thankfully, those 3 colonization cards in hand. Then I will grab the swordsman, the rich land, frugality, and the reserves, so just taking a whole bunch of cards from the 1 civil action area, and with having the Silk Road, those yellow cards are definitely not bad to have. While not wanting to develop the swordsman, I still think it's important to at least have them in hand. I miss out on the irrigation, so that's a bit of an issue, but there's an ocean liner service and a selective breeding, and I have a very healthy yellow bank with the frugality. I will be able to get 2 more population out, and so I was hoping that I had enough ways how I can still be fine with my population, and I was not willing to pay 2 civil actions for the irrigation, and instead rather wanted to have all of those yellow cards. At the end of my turn, I will keep all of the colonization cards in hand as well as the wealthy territory. And I will draw immediately another colonization card, which I was happy to see, because even when vanishadow goes for more strength now, with that I might still be able to defend myself without too much effort. But vanishadow maybe also gets something nice. He gets a very early ocean liner service. It's actually the first card revealed from H2, the 1 card that drops down to the 2 civil action area for him. But at least he doesn't have that strong of production going already. He will now go for 1 iron upgrade, needs at least 2 turns to finish the ocean liner service with the new deposits being out. And with that, I think it is nice, but at least he takes a little bit of time until he can finish it. But of course, in such an early ocean liner service is still very strong for him. And then with the last civil action, he went for this upgrade, of course. You will draw 2 cards, the first H2 cards. As you can see, I actually seed the wealthy territory into the deck, and I think maybe that is a mistake. I could get punished potentially by some strength events, even though of course I will stay weaker anyway. So maybe that's not the biggest issue. Also, I think I don't have knowledge about the rebellion, and I will leave myself more vulnerable to the rebellion after my turn. So maybe it could potentially be nice to get it out of the way now. But I think it's a bit tricky, because with having the 1 colony from Columbus, I think the Suez Canal could be a very interesting wonder for me. But if I now seed the wealthy territory and I don't draw another colony immediately, I think it might be a tricky question if I can allow myself to go for a Suez Canal gamble with only having 1 colony at the moment. So I think maybe it could be better to just keep it in hand. I'm not sure what my exact reasons were. Maybe I was hoping for some improvement for my turn, maybe hoping to see a colony revealed now. I don't know it really for certain. But at the end I actually seeded it, but I think maybe it is more important to keep it in the hand as a backup colony. With the masonry, the Suez Canal is also quite an efficient wonder, and then I can just take it and maybe give myself some draws to potentially draw an H2 colony, and can just now, if I don't draw a colony immediately with it being revealed already, I might just have to pass on it. Maybe it's also not too bad, but I mean the other H2 wonders are not that great. Then I have to see what are things I can invest my resources on. The event revealed is luckily no bad event, the cultural influence, which was seeded by me. I gain 1 more culture than vanishadow. And then this turn I will play the reserves for food, use the frugality, increase my population again, then go for an upgrade getting out of corruption. Now that I take a look at it, I might have done a mistake here, because I will now use the Ridge Land without the Silk Road bonus. It cost me 1 resource, making that I actually get out of corruption, but with now me being at 1 food, I probably should have just started with going for the Ridge Land with the Silk Road bonus, playing the reserves for 2 food, making it at the end of this whole sequence I'm just perfectly left on 0 food, and the 1 resource more might actually be quite a bit more relevant, so I'm not sure why I didn't go for this. I don't think this 1 food saved up has any big purpose, so that was probably just an oversight by me. And that I actually also just noticed now. Yeah, I should have probably, maybe I probably made a thinking mistake just starting my turn with, because I just wanted to do some actions on my civilizations. I don't want to just take cards from the row, so I thought now is maybe a good opportunity to use those yellow cards, get some populations out, meaning I have more free civil actions at the following turns. And then maybe I started with playing the reserves, and after that thought, okay, what can I still do? And went for this, and then I thought, okay, maybe thankfully using the Ridgeland without the Silk Road bonus gets me out of corruption, then maybe not thinking about that when I use the Ridgeland with the Silk Road bonus, of course I have 1 food less from the reserve, so that also would get me out of corruption, so that was probably a mistake. It would be better to be at 0 food and at 6+6 resource production. So here I probably made a small mistake. And then with the last 3 civil actions, I will actually take the journalism, which is partly a denial. But not only, it definitely is a card that has some potential for me, especially if I get some more population out. It could be nice to have the journalisms in hand, and I think it is just a bit limited. It could potentially be strong for vanishadow. If vanishadow decides to not further go for the military, which definitely might be, there's Napoleon coming down the row, maybe he can replace Barbarossa with him and then he has quite a bit of strength going. But with the journalism, if he decides to go for a peaceful route with the ocean liner service, I just think at some point the journalism has a lot of potential, and we both have no printing presses, meaning whoever has the journalism at the end has the chance to go for Shakespeare or maybe also for bigger Darwin. Yeah, taking this journalism sets myself up for those leaders, and at the same time denies vanishadow the opportunity to maybe make a very nice use out of those leaders, making it that maybe only Bach is there left as a very strong culture leader for him. Maybe that all won't matter if he goes for Napoleon, but maybe he rather wants to go for a peaceful route. Maybe not, because I think I have a relatively strong position. Maybe he wants to keep the game imbalanced and go for something a bit messy. So yeah, I'm not sure if it is really necessary, but it can have quite an impact, and so at the end I made a decision to take the journalisms, even though I could have maybe taken something like reserves, which also could be very useful to have. With my last civil action I didn't go for the urban growth, which maybe is a bit bad, because it gives Napoleon available for 1 civil action for vanishadow, so if he wants to go for him he even gets him a bit cheaper now. But I also wasn't sure what else I might want to do. I don't want to go for very late alchemy. I can't do anything really on my civilization. I mean, I could build something like a religion, but there are team sports coming down the road. There's still Darwin in the game, and so I might not want to commit resources, because maybe I am lucky, get a colony, and then out of the sudden I can take and finish the Suez Canal at the next turn. It could also be nice to leave myself with 10 or more resources, so that if vanishadow has maybe drawn a war already, I can at least threaten to go for 2 H2 units, and with there being 2 cavalrymen and there being this copy to tactic, this tactic to copy. With that, I can always threaten to build 2 cavalrymen, copy the tactic, and be at +12 strength, which is at least somewhat reasonable. So now I go for this line, not totally certain about the journalism, but I think there are often situations in 2-player games where it is something that maybe you have to consider denying. Also, you can see I actually do get quite a bit lucky again after drawing the vast territory. I will now draw immediately the developed territory, so I don't get punished for ceding the wealthy territory and have the chance to just take and finish the Suez Canal at my next turn. vanishadow will go for Napoleon for 1 civil action, will use Barbarossa. one last time, then he will go for Napoleon, is now at 19 strength, which is quite a bit threatening. Goes for the justice system, interestingly, which gives him an additional civil action. Might of course be helpful, but now with being down to 4 science after his turn, might also be a bit tricky for him to actually get a government form going in the near future. So an interesting choice, but of course having an additional civil action might be quite useful for him. Now it is my turn. I definitely won't use my politics phase because I want to keep the tactic for the Suez Canal. Just what is going on? The colony for the Suez Canal, yeah, because I just think that is very strong. Getting 2 yellow tokens, 2 blue tokens, the additional production, and that all with the masonry allowing me to finish the wonder very efficiently. But I think this turn I actually make quite a big mistake. And I'm not really sure why I make this mistake or what my reasons were to go for the turn that I did. Because I think the best thing might just be to indeed finish the Suez Canal, and then I am at 0 resources plus 8 production. I have 2 civil actions left, and I think I kinda have to take the reserves or maybe the wave, but probably the reserves plus one of those other cards to allow me to threaten again to have 10 resources at the next turn, so that I can again threaten to go for 2 cavalrymen, or maybe if I draw a tactic like fortifications, hussars. I mean, hussars, then the medieval army tactic would still be better if I go for cavalryman, but just threatening something with having 10 resources and the ability to build 2 H2 units. I think that would just be perfectly fine, finishing Suez, taking reserves, and then either taking maybe team spots or breakthrough. And I'm not really sure why I did it. I guess I do know why I did it. Yeah. When I go for this line, it might be fine, but I'm not safe from an aggression any longer. That is, of course, a bit of an issue. I might get hit by an aggression, which might be bad. But maybe the bigger danger here is actually a war. Maybe also the less likely danger, because 1 copy of War with Technology I've already drawn, and there are less copies of wars in the deck than copies of aggressions. But a war might have the potential to do a lot more damage to me if I don't prepare for that war nicely, and I will play a turn which makes me safe from an aggression, but makes me vulnerable to a war. Of course, if I maybe play this turn with finishing Suez and then I get hit by an aggression, I might say, I made a mistake, maybe I should have prepared for the aggression. But here I won't finish the Suez Canal, won't get the immediate economical value out of it. Instead, I want to get a bit of additional strength, and I will do it with first of all taking the breakthrough and then going for the team sports and building it, and also building one warrior, putting myself at 9 strength, and with all of those defense cards I now will be able to defend against an aggression. And before that I was at 6 strength. Do I actually? I mean, I have 8 plus 4. I was missing 1 strength to defend against an aggression, I think, in this situation when I just finished the Suez Canal. No, so I think that at least makes sure that I can defend against an aggression, but the big problem is I'm now only at 4 science, meaning I can't develop any H2 technology. I might be able to develop swordsman, go for some upgrades, maybe because of that I was fine with it, but I think the threat to build 2 cavalrymen, it's not that unlikely that one of those copies will be available for me, and then it just helps me a lot to defend against the war. Maybe I'm a bit biased with hindsight here, because I know what will happen now, but I think maybe I should have rather keep myself better prepared for a war and maybe vulnerable to an aggression than the other way around, because I think a war might have the potential to really do a lot of damage. Imagine now if vanishadow is the second war with technology, I might get low in very science before I can develop any military tech apart from the swordsman, which could be a disaster potentially, and also the war with territory might be very menacing. So here I think I should have just gone for the Suez Canal, being better prepared for a war afterwards, being vulnerable to an aggression, but also just getting a bit of economy going. Having the team spots is maybe also not too bad, especially if there's a rebellion coming. But yeah, I think I should have just gone for the Suez Canal here, and the additional yellow tokens from the developed territory at least also would make me a bit better prepared for rebellion. And as you probably already guessed, there is now a war happening, a war over territory, and that will make will be quite a bit dangerous for me. Vanishadow builds one warrior, increases his population, is now 23 strength, takes the reserves, takes the wave of nationalism, and then will just build 2 stages of the ocean liner service, making it that he can finish the wonder at the next turn if he wants to. And yeah, I have drawn the fortifications tactic, which is a very nice draw, allowing myself to get a nice tactic with only investing into one technology. But yeah, there's a cannon coming down the row, but I don't have the science to go for it, which is of course quite a bit annoying, because otherwise I could have just built 2 cannons, revealed a tactic, and I would have maybe at least been able to make vanishadow steal only 2, maybe even only 1 defense card, yellow cube, because no, maybe I could have, even with not building the team sports, if I maybe would have taken it with having the urban growth, I could have built it and 2 cannons potentially. So with that, I might have been able to go for a very nice defense in the war. Like this, I have quite some issues defending, and I have to see what I will do about it at the next turn. Because the problem is, I could now go for Swordsman and get a bit of additional strength from that with just going for a lot of upgrades, maybe making it that I at least don't lose 4 yellow tokens like I will do it now. How many is it? No, I think I will actually only lose 3, luckily. With 1 strength more, vanishadow would still fall from me. I could maybe prevent it, but then I would invest into the swordsman, with the cannons being very nice for me to have with the fortifications tactic. So instead I made a decision to now just finish the Suez Canal and get some economical value going, and getting the developed territory for free. The problem is now, with not having taken the reserves to the turn before, I now will be stuck at 8 resources for my next turn, meaning even though I have enough science to go for cannons at the next turn, I don't have enough resources to build 2 of them and reveal the tactic, which is quite a bit annoying. So I was quite unhappy on how I played it and how things developed now for me. Maybe when I go for the other turn I just get hit by an aggression and things are fine, but probably I would still get hit by a war with vanishadow having this war, but of course there are situations where he doesn't have the war and aggression, but I think an aggression I could maybe better handle. Losing now 3 yellow tokens is definitely quite a bit painful, I would say. After finishing the Suez Canal, as you can see, I'm actually willing to go for Darwin for 3 civil actions, which is of course quite a bit expensive, and I can just get him for cheaper at the next turn when vanishadow has already committed to his leader. Also, Darwin is not that great for me, that he is necessarily worth it to pay 3 civil actions for him. The problem is I need to do some stuff with my civil actions. I have 5 civil actions left after finishing the Suez Canal. I have already 5 cards in hand, meaning I have hand space for 2 more cards. I could just, I don't know, take 2 yellow cards, but then I have a completely full hand. I could take cannons, but also this card I might be able to get for cheaper at one of the following turns. I just don't have that much to do, and Darwin immediately at least gives me immediately 2 culture production, and also having him elected already might be nice. Then I have those civil actions out of the way, and with this ability maybe I will be able to grab selective breeding or some other cards that I really would like to take at the next turn for relatively cheap. So I at the end was just willing to go for him. There's of course also Bach on the row. There are 2 copies of Opera left, but I think with the current situation I just have to focus on defending, setting myself up for that, instead of dreaming about building some operas. I think that is the wrong direction to go for. Maybe it could still be fine, maybe it could work out, but I also have the journalisms in hand for Darwin, so in case the game transforms into a bit of more peaceful game, I could still just go for some journalisms with Darwin if I really need some culture production. So I go for Darwin, and then I just take the urban growth, which might be a nice card to have with the Silk Road. I don't take the cannons, but there's another copy coming, and with Darwin, even if it is on 3, it's maybe not too bad to have missed out on it, and so I was willing to let this copy of cannon be in the row. I could have just taken it for 1 civil action with Darwin, maybe it could have been fine, but at the end I rather wanted to have this urban growth, because I might want to build more team sports, maybe at some point a journalism. So I think with that the urban growth could be quite nice. I draw the mobile artillery, maybe taking 1 potentially interesting tactic away from vanishadow. Also I draw the Cold War and economic progress. Economic progress could potentially be interesting. Vanishadow will now steal 3 yellow tokens away from me. Will also go for an aggression. With finishing the Suez Canal now I wasn't able to defend against an aggression, so That didn't really turn out to be nice. How I played it early on with going for the team sports line and not leaving myself with enough science. Luckily it's only the H1 raid. That could have been also an H2 aggression. Now I only lose this one HA lab, which is maybe not too bad, but maybe still helps vanishadow a little bit, but mostly I was happy to see this because it could have been a lot worse. vanishadow will then go for finishing the ocean liner service, goes for the constitutional monarchy, builds a lab, and after using the ocean liner service to increase his population, will also build a religion. With this he can develop the Conmon for 8 science at the next turn, maybe even less if he's willing to build yet another urban building. Now it's my turn. As you can see, I do actually see the economic progress. I will stay weaker anyway, and I think the economic progress will be a nice event for me. I have more resource production thanks to the Suez Canal. vanishadow has the ocean liner service, meaning the food part from the economic progress might be better for me because I will grab the selective breeding this turn. And before the economic progress is revealed, there's actually the wealthy territory coming. I still have a lot of defense cards, I have the cartography, so if I'm able to win it I have even more resource production, and I have some blue tokens to hopefully also make it possible to actually gain a lot of resources out of the economic progress. So I just wanted to seed this event. I could also not seed it and still get it into the same event deck at the next turn, but I thought I will stay weaker anyway, so I was just willing to push. The raiders are revealed, which is a bit annoying, but not too bad. I will just lose 2 food to it, and this turn I want to start building some military. I can't build 2 cannons, but building 1 at least makes sure that I'm not in danger of an aggression any longer, and so I was willing to go for the cannons, using the breakthrough with the Silk Road bonus for 4 additional science, building 1, taking the selective breeding so that there's no food solution denied for me, and then with going for the selective breeding, I think first of all I will also use this urban growth, building an additional lab, getting 1 science and 1 culture production with Darwin, which might be nice to have. Maybe I will need a population also into the military soon, but if I don't use the urban growth now, I might lose it relatively quickly. It makes space in my hand so that I can take more cards afterwards, and it's just a bit better to be on 3 science production again. I can maybe also disband some of those warriors to move them into cannons for the fortifications tactic, and then with having used the urban growth I have 2 civil actions left, which I can use to take both the rich land and the efficient upgrade, allowing myself to go for some very cheap farm upgrades, maybe at the next turn or as soon as I find a time to do it. I will keep the tactic and as many colonization cards as possible. Interestingly, I will now also draw the defensive army tactic, so luckily I have quite a bit of tactics to choose from, and the defensive army tactic might be interesting because I have just that many infantry units and still the swordsmen in hand, the riflemen are coming down the row, so in this situation the defensive army tactic might be better than the fortifications, even though very often the fortifications will be better in 2-player games. vanishadow seeds, and now there's finally a strength event revealed, so I do get a bit punished now. In addition to the war territory, that is now the 4th yellow token that vanishadow takes away, but at least I also gained 5 additional ones with my 2 colonies, so I am maybe, it's of course too bad to lose all of them, but I can somehow survive maybe the big yellow token loss, while otherwise I would have some very big issues now. vanishadow goes for the efficient upgrade, increases his population 1 time normally, 1 time with the ocean liner service, goes with the constitutional monarchy, builds 1 knight, builds 1 warrior, goes up to 29 strength, and now with that again makes sure to be quite threatening, again signals that he probably is willing to continue to go for a bit of military pressure in this game, and so then he goes for the rifleman, the strategy, and the cavalryman, and also with those picks of course he is again signaling that he has some maybe military heavy plans for H3. There's just 1 card left from H2, allowing myself to potentially think about still going for the swordsman defensive army tactic instead of the fortifications. vanishadow is taking the rifleman away, but the swordsman now might actually be quite handy to have. First of all, we'll go for selective breeding. I think it is important to get some food production going now. I can use one of those yellow cards with the Silk Road bonus to go for 1 upgrade for 0 resources. The other one will cost me 1 resource. I have still 4 civil actions left, and as you can see I indeed was willing to go for the swordsman. I could also just disband a bunch of warriors, go for those cannons, but no, I think with having all of those warriors, the defensive army tactic might actually be the better one here, and now I can just upgrade those, get a bit of additional strength, revealing the tactic, putting myself at 20 strength, vanishadow not being able to go for an aggression against me, and I felt like maybe I have stabilized my position because I can go for one more cannon, some upgrades, and with that I have a respectable amount of strength. Hopefully vanishadow is not that easily able to build up more strength to again threaten myself from an aggression. So I was hoping that maybe I have somehow militarily stabilized, at least against aggressions and wars. There might of course still be some strength events coming. And with that I was thinking that maybe the position is not looking too badly, because I have 8 resource production. And now actually vanishadow is more civil action, so it's not like he is economically completely behind or something. He also has the ocean liner service, but he's relatively low in science, and I just thought I also have the Silk Road, a bit more culture production, so in a peaceful game I thought maybe I will have an advantage, and I might now be prepared for a military heavy game, at least I thought. With the last civil action I will just grab the revolutionary idea, because I think in this position science is probably what I need the most. I don't know if I can use this engineering genius. I don't really need a cavalryman with having the defensive army tactic. I could of course take the breakthrough instead of the revolutionary idea, because it's the more efficient card. The revolutionary idea gives 1 more science, but the 1 more science comes at the cost of 1 civil action, and 1 science for 1 civil action is not that great of a deal, I would say. But the revolutionary idea has of course the advantage of allowing to have the science up front before you develop a technology, and with that it allows me to maybe go for something like military theory, or maybe an H3 government form earlier, which would not be possible with a breakthrough maybe. So I thought here, with also having a reasonable amount of civil actions, I can maybe take the less efficient card to maybe have more options for what technologies I want to develop. I keep the fortifications tactic 1 event and 2 colonization cards in hand. H3 will start now. I will discard the theocracy, vanishadow seeds, and there's actually the wealthy territory revealed, which was seeded by me, and I was very happy to see that I actually win it very, very cheaply. I think I was actually willing to send 2 units, I think maybe even 2 swordsmen into it, because I have the Suez Canal. It allows a bit of transitioning, and also it allows myself to increase my population. Now that I've put 1 worker back into the yellow bank, I can increase my population. Otherwise I would have just had maybe to disband 1 warriors, but because of that I was actually willing to bid quite a lot for this, for it being a wealthy territory 1. But at the end I even win it for just 1 warrior, which I was very happy to see. I have now a lot of resources saved up, even 9 resource production. I'm nicely prepared for the economic progress that is coming, and I was quite happy how that this situation is looking now. vanishadow goes for the patriotism, goes for the breakthrough, increases his population, goes for the organized religion, is relatively low in science, and will take the first copy of air forces. He has relatively full hand, can't do a lot else, and if his plans are still to go for a bunch of military, it might be relevant to have the first copy, because even though there are 2 copies of air forces, so it's guaranteed that both players have the chance to take a copy at some point, it is still an advantage maybe to have them early, even though on the other hand vanishadow is now very low in science, so we will have to see if we actually will be able to develop the air forces in the near future. And when we take maybe a look again at the overview after his turn, first of all he will build another knight going up to 31 strength, and then we can see that he has 10 culture behind me, has probably the weaker economy, but is still a little bit threatening, even though he is only on medieval army tactics. It's of course the upgraded Sun Tzu tactic, but still with Napoleon he is somewhat threatening, but also not that much threatening, with only having 3 science, and with that not being able to really develop any of those technologies very quickly. So overall I was feeling I might have a nice position. Now it is my turn. I have a lot of resources saved up. I thought about what to do. I thought probably I want to increase my population, then I have an unhappy worker, and why not just build a team sports to get rid of it, to get a bit of additional strength, which allows me to defend against vanishadow, and I can of course also go for some upgrades to swordsman if I want to. And then I thought maybe I just take some cards. Reserves is a fine card to have, maybe the military theory could be nice to have, even though I maybe don't really need it. Maybe I could think about going for some scientific method upgrades, potentially, which also could be interesting, but there might be some better cards coming soon, like computers and multimedia or some stuff like this. So I felt not too great about investing 6 science into those upgrades now, even though it might still be fine. But then I thought maybe there's an even better thing that I could invest my resources into, because if I want to go for team sports maybe anyway, then I have some surplus happy phases. And with that, I thought maybe it's actually quite nice to use the many resources that I'm having now, and also with, of course, having the knowledge that the economic progress is coming, to just go for the Kremlin. I can finish it also quite nicely with the masonry, and after that I'm now sitting at 8 civil actions, 5 military actions, and I have 6 culture production going, meaning that I will maybe be able to develop a little bit of an even bigger culture lead, make my position just better, making it harder for vanishadow to come up with a peaceful solution to my civilization, forcing him maybe into military play, but for military play I'm still, I think, nicely prepared. I have a lot of resources, can go for hopefully defensive army tactics with air force or something like this. So I was willing to go for the Kremlin and then just build one team sports, making sure that I can defend myself, but also then using my 2 free military actions to go for some upgrades, putting myself at 23 strength. I leave vanishadow the military theory, but he has strategy anyway and not really a lot of science. I might deny it, but I also don't really need this card that much. There's also still the fundamentalism coming down the road, which could be interesting. The reserves stay in 2. Maybe I still have a chance to take them at the next turn potentially, even though it might be a card that might be very interesting for vanishadow. But I have, especially with the economic progress coming, a lot of resources available anyway, and thought just building this Gremlin now, having more actions for the future turns, more culture production, is more important than just taking a bunch of cards now. I will draw some cards, the impact of strength, the war, and the impact of balance. Maybe for now the impact of balance is the most interesting card. Vanishadow Seeds, the event revealed is the call to arms, and I will actually lose 2 civil actions, which is a bit annoying, but I also draw the impact of competition, which with having those team sports, even though Vanishadow is pushing military, he doesn't really have a big competition with only having warriors and knights at the moment, so it's a fine impact for 2 civil actions, maybe at the end a somewhat fine deal here. Even though the civil actions could also be somewhat nicely used at my next turn. vanishadow has maybe something interesting happen here for him, because his big problem was that he doesn't really have any science to develop all of those technologies, but now all of a sudden both copies of Revolutionary Idea are revealed for him, and with those 12 additional science, all of a sudden he might be able to go for air forces, maybe strategy, maybe one of those other technologies if he has any tactic that he can use with it. So all of a sudden he maybe is again a bit more threatening, because he has the ability to develop those technologies now, with just taking both of the Revolutionary Ideas, building a warrior now, even destroying a lab, interestingly, to build another knight, going up to 37 strength. The next turn he can go for an air force. Can't use the wave, so he's missing 1 resource to just go for 2 air force. So interesting that he went for this knight, but he can go for 1 air force and a warrior, and also the strategy, which is a respectable amount of strength. I, this turn, make the decision to seed because I have at least 2 impacts, which potentially and hopefully will be nice for me. Also, the popularization of science could be interesting, because I was actually thinking about if I maybe can sneak in a computer with Einstein here. I can take computers for 1 civil action with Darwin. I have a lot of resource saved up, the economic progress is coming, and the additional science production might just make it a lot easier to maybe go into air forces and some other stuff. I then came to the conclusion that it is probably too greedy, because vanishadow is now threatening at least a somewhat dangerous amount of strength with going for 1 air force. Air force with medieval armies are of course not great, but at least it's an upgrade in medieval army tactics, so each air force gives him 8 additional strength. You can go for strategy for 1 warrior for 4 additional strength. So he can go for a bit of strength, and I have to be a bit careful, especially because I have not the most population. So with that thought that it is maybe nice to go for modern infantry now, which of course means that I spend a lot of science. There are no revolutionary ideas left. I have at least 1 from Age 2 in hand, but going for air forces in the near future might not be that easily possible. But I seeded the impact of balance into the deck. Seeding also guarantees that the economic progress is revealed before my next turn. Maybe it's even nice that it is not revealed now. Of course, getting hit by the politics of strength is quite a bit bad, making it that maybe vanishadow has no even more guaranteed a war, maybe even multiple wars potentially. But now at least the economic progress is the last card. I can open it at the next turn, maybe luring into vanishadow into a war, because I will end my turn with not being able to defend it. But with the economic progress I will be able to defend it. So I will go for modern infantries, just allowing myself to get quite a bit of additional strength with just going for some upgrades. I have a lot of resources anyway. I won't be able to go for Air Force the next turn, but unless I get distracted by a war. But if that should happen, thanks to the economic progress, I will be able to win the war, and that I think might be enough to just win me the game. I think vanishadow cannot afford losing a war in this situation. But if he maybe uh, doesn't go for war, then at the next turn I will take computers and Einstein in hand. With the revolutionary idea, I will have just enough science to go for computers at the next turn, even after spending all of my science this turn. And then if I just go for some upgrades, which is of course a bit costly, but I will take an efficient upgrade, and with the economic progress I will have a lot of resources. Then I will be able to go for air forces in 2 turns again, having Einstein with a lot of science production. Which is why I considered seeding the popularization of science, because now if the next event is opened, I might not be able to reveal it quickly enough, but if maybe something distracts me from going for those computers, I might regret not having seeded an impact. It might be better. Also, maybe I should just seeded impact of competition with going for the modern infantry, but I didn't know what event exactly will be revealed. Probably I should have gone for it, but of course vanishadow might also be able to build some air forces, and then it's not too bad for him, but I have just a lot of resources and will go for modern infantry now, so I think it might have been a better first impact to seed an impact of balance. And now, so I will go for modern infantry. I will go for 3 upgrades, which I think is a good amount, because that allows myself to, if I go only for 2 upgrades, then I will have 2 corruption after I end my turn, but with 1 more upgrade, I will have now exactly enough blue tokens left in the bank that I will get 9 additional resources from the economic progress. If I go for 1 more upgrade, then it gets a bit more tricky to go for 2 more armies. I think it's still possible, but it's a bit less military action efficient, and so I just went for those 3 upgrades, preparing myself as nicely for the economic progress as possible. And then the question is, what do I do with my remaining civil actions? I thought about computers and Einstein. I thought about even if I can go for computers already this turn, but as I said, came to the conclusion that it is a bit too greedy. I thought about reserves, sufficient upgrade, also a bit military theory, and actually also the fundamentalism, because vanishadow has the Acropolis and it could maybe give him a bit of strength on top, but I don't think it's necessary to deny it here, because vanishadow doesn't have that easily enough science to go for air forces and fundamentalism, and he also has the strategy in hand, which he can more easily go for, so I thought the fundamentalism I don't really have to deny. And so instead I went for computers, I went for the reserves, I took Einstein still in hand. Maybe I could wait for a different leader. Marie Curie could be interesting with potentially going for computers just for 3 additional strength, which also makes me a bit safer for the military. Churchill could help me with the military. But I like the idea of vanishadow, if he doesn't go for a war, as I said, if he goes for a war, then he has maybe lost the game because he will lose the war. But if he doesn't go for war, I can go for 2 computers. I'm very nicely prepared for impact of balance, have Einstein going with a lot of science production, scoring some culture with him, and then also having enough science to be able to go for air force in 2 turns. And so I kind of like this idea, so I went for Einstein here for 1 civil action, took the efficient upgrade, so that I'm very cheaply able to at least go for 1 upgrade. 1 upgrade, so won't be enough to go for air force in 2 turns. I might have to invest a bit of resources in order to be able to go for those air forces. The question if it is the correct plan. Maybe vanishadow can be threatening, but I at the end was thought maybe it could just be an interesting idea. And even if I then lose a war but have some nice impacts and get some culture from Einstein, it might then I might be able to afford losing 1 war. I keep the cards to seed and my colonization cards in hand. Now it was interesting to see what vanishadow will do, and he will actually go for a war against me. And that is good news, because he doesn't have knowledge that economic progress is on top. And maybe he's in a bit of a desperate situation and needs to take the risk, because he sees that I can't defend myself good enough. I think he might have just need to take the risk, because it is an opportunity for him to maybe come back into the game here. But sadly for him, there is actually the economic progress on top, and even though he's able to go up to 54 strength here just with medieval army tactics, even goes up to 56 with destroying 1 more thing, takes the reserves and takes the pro sports, going down to 0 science. Now, but he makes some huge sacrifices here, and I, with seeding the impact of competition into the deck, will just be able to win this war even with the economic progress, giving me 3 food and 9 additional resources. So this card really worked out very nicely, giving me over more value and luring into vanishadow into declaring a losing war. With that, I also think it was nice that it wasn't revealed already the turn before, because then vanishadow, if it would be revealed at my last turn, could also use the additional resource to maybe go for a bit more strength. And yeah, I think this turn is relatively clear. I have to defend this war, and then I think after losing this war, the only thing that maybe vanishadow can hope to still win this game is probably to somehow try to go for another war, so just leaving myself nicely able to defend and not completely destroying my civilization, hopefully will be enough to win me this game at the end. I will destroy a lab, a mine. I thought keeping as much resource production as possible could be nice, and I might not really need the science anyway. I mean, maybe to get air force at some point, but no, at this point I thought maybe rather have the resources, and I will go for 2 cannons, 1 modern infantry, play the reserves, go for another modern infantry, and with that I'm at 60 strength, and I can just take another copy of reserves, leaving myself with as much resources as possible. Maybe I could have thought about destroying the mine, but maybe if the game continues peacefully, I might want to be able to finish a wonder, because now if vanishadow goes for endowment and fast food chains, maybe he can do some stuff, even though it probably won't be enough for him. And of course having more resource to defend might be nice, but now I probably won't be able to go for the air force as well. If I'm at 2 science production still, I might be able to go for air forces in 2 turns at least. But at this point I didn't really see how vanishadow will go for another war. I mean, he can maybe go for some air force or some stuff, but no, I just felt not that threatened by another war. I will draw the armed intervention. I will win this war thanks to the surprising economic progress. Maybe it wasn't surprising, maybe vanishadow thought there is something wrong with this, but also maybe thought I have to try something, I maybe have to hope. And now he will push. The terrorism is revealed, which is a bit annoying, destroying one of my team spots, forcing a bit of my actions at my next turn. He will now use the ocean liner service, blaze the wave of nationalism. That's at least one benefit of losing the war, being able to get one relatively cheap air force. He takes the endowment and a fast food chains, maybe setting himself up to finish the game peacefully, but he's also again stronger. I was a bit afraid of a bad strength event here. With vanishadow being in a bad position, he needs to take risks anyways. Even when there's a bad strength event, he needed to push with the terrorism being in there, and maybe he just won a coin flip, maybe there's a strength event coming, maybe with endowment and fast food chains he will be able to do something. So I was a little bit threatened about it. I won't push this turn, just because there might be something bad coming. I mean, I think, will I get stronger? I think I won't get stronger, because I will leave myself enough resource to finish the space flight at the next turn. So maybe I could have just pushed the popularization of science for 2 culture. I'm not sure why I delayed it, because if there is something bad, it just hits me after my turn. Maybe I could have just done it, but I made at the end the decision to not do it. I will go for the space flight, leave myself prepared to finish it at the next turn with playing the revolutionary idea. I can at least at the next turn develop 1 more science with Einstein. Also Darwin isn't really doing anything for me with having no labs, so I will just switch to Einstein and then increase my population, as I don't really need any of those techs as well. And I leave myself with as much resource as possible, so that vanishadow hopefully won't be able to go for a surprising war or something, and maybe there is actually still something possible. He has a lot of resources, he has some military actions, there's Churchill, even though he will lose Napoleon, which is why I thought there's maybe not that big of a threat, and maybe it didn't take a very careful look at the situation. But yeah, I have this defensive army tactic, I have reserves with the Silk Road bonus in hand. There isn't really a lot more that I can do. Maybe instead of increasing my population, I could have taken the satellites with Darwin as 1 civil action to then have the chance to go for 2 more strength. Maybe that was actually a small oversight on my part. And maybe I felt just a little bit too safe. Now I felt even safer, because I have actually the positional army now, and I have enough to build 3 cannons, which now gives me quite a nice amount of strength together with the positional army tactic. But as you can see, there is actually a war happening, and a hybrid war declared by vanishadow, and now he will go and building a lot of strength, destroys the mines, uses the ocean liner service, uses Churchill, builds 1, 2, 3 air forces, and a warrior, getting a bunch of new tactics, and is now at 86 strength. And I'm not sure if I have at any time seen something like this, that a player gets that much value out of an H1 tactic. And vanishadow at this point has 19 units in the military, 5 of them are air forces, so he has 5 tactics with air forces, 30 from the Sun Tzu tactic, and then another 2 armies without an air force. So 7 medieval army tactics, 5 of them with air force. He gets 36 from his tactic with only having an H1 tactic available, and having 19 units into the military is also really quite a lot. So no, a very rare thing to see, and he has to take an uprising for this war, but yeah, it's probably a desperate move, as yeah, even if I lose now a little bit of culture, it's maybe not enough to bring him back into the game, but he has the endowment. Maybe if he has another good impact, or maybe can pull an aggression off or something, maybe there could still be something possible. And now, of course, I was quite happy to have the positional army tactic drawn, because it does increase my strength potential. I could have, it's actually not that much, but it's definitely still a little bit, because I will now be able to go for 2 full and 1 outdated positional army tactic, meaning I get 30 from the tactic, and otherwise I might only be able to go for 24 from the tactic. So definitely quite a bit of additional strength, which makes me even more safe now. And I quickly came to the conclusion that I don't have to be afraid of going into an uprising here, because I have only 4 culture production, and I can just build a bunch of units and don't really have to be concerned about it, unless there's a nice way to do it, but I don't have that much population actually left and some unhappy workers now. So I will play the reserves, and having now more than 15 resource allows me to build 3 cannons and reveal the positional army tactic. As you can see, I'm at 81 strength, and that difference might just not be big enough for vanishadow to win the game, because I have also 2 impacts in there, and one of them is actually quite strong with the impact of competition. However, I maybe do my best to make this game exciting again, because here I will actually go for a very big plunder. An extremely big plunder. You can maybe take a look at this turn and think about what would be the best to do. I give you a little bit of a hint, because I will destroy 1 thing here, allowing myself to maybe do something with this population. So when you take a look at this, what is the best thing to do? I think there's one clearly best thing to do, but I just missed out on it during this turn. Because I think I got trapped into the following thought process, which is a bit which sometimes is a bit of a problem through the ages. You think about the most important things and do them first, and then afterwards you think, okay, what can I do with my remaining civil actions, and then do something, and maybe don't realize that with doing those remaining actions, maybe something about the actions before should have been changed now. Because I thought about what can I do with 3 resources. Can maybe destroy this farm, and at the end I just thought, let's just build an additional HA lab for 2 additional points for the impact of balance. And then afterwards I had 3 civil actions left and thought, now I will develop 1 technology with Einstein. Doesn't really matter which one, so I will just go for the engineering, because it could potentially give some points for the impact of progress. And then I ended my turn, and immediately after I've ended it, I realized that with having the engineering, of course, 3 additional resources are enough to build another team sports, and it is just better on so many levels than building this lab. Of course, the lab gives me 2 points for the impact of balance, but the team sports immediately gives me 2 points for the impact of competition. With that, it's already even. But it also gives me 2 additional strength for the war. So being a 4 culture swing for the war, 4 additional culture from there, it actually makes it that I don't have an uprising any longer, meaning I get 4 additional culture production with my turn, another 4 culture from there, and with only having 4 cards in hand, that makes the difference between being able to defend against an aggression or not. Maybe vanishadow firing off an aggression is the one way I maybe could get back into the game. Probably not, because then he doesn't have any impact coming, and even with an armed intervention it won't be enough. But hopefully, or I won't get punished here for my mistake, because it's just vanishadow is not too much behind, but I definitely should have seen it, and if the game is just a bit closer, I might get heavily punished for this oversight, but luckily I don't, and so I go for this weird move with building the lab, going for the engineering, not realizing that with the engineering I actually could have used the 3 resources to build a team sports, fixing my uprising, making myself safe from the aggression, giving me points from the war, and yeah. So a very big mistake, a very big blunder, costing me a lot of points, but luckily I have now already a bit of a lead, and even though I get some culture stolen now, and even though I, after losing 5 culture, will get hit by an armed intervention, so having the team sports also would have prevented this 14 culture swing from happening. I am still in the lead, and I have 2 impacts in there. One of them is quite big, so even with that I will be able to win the game at the end, but it will be a lot closer than it maybe could have been. So, yeah, that was just a terrible blunder by me, and definitely shouldn't have happened, especially because it also makes some other impacts better, potentially. The impact of competition, even though I'm the weaker player, is a lot better for me than for vanishadow, because he has just a lot of knights and warriors. And then the other impact is, of course, the impact of balance. At the end, I'm able to win this game, but at the end, it may be my best to still lose it with overseeing the option of building this team sport. Also, I think in H2, I probably made a blunder when I went for the team sports, not leaving myself with enough science. Maybe I'm a bit biased with looking back at the game now, seeing that the war is actually happening. I think there was definitely some reasoning or some valid arguments in order to say that I rather want to be prepared against an aggression, but I think even with not knowing what cards vanishadow has, I should have maybe rather focused on just being prepared for war and also just getting my economy running at the same point with finishing the Suez Canal. So I think there with the big war I brought trouble upon me that I maybe could have prevented. Maybe I then would have get hit by an aggression, but vanishadow, as we saw, had only an H1 aggression, so that maybe could have already put me into a lot better spot. But thanks to the monarchy with the many civil actions, the science from Confucius and Silk Road, the pyramids, then the Suez Canal, at the end even the Kremlin, I just had such a nice economy going that vanishadow, even with doing some damage to me, at the end still wasn't really in the better position. And no, but also definitely thanks to some luck that I had during this game, taking Columbus, then drawing the vast territories, of course very lucky, then ceding the wealthy territory with the Suez Canal coming down the road, and then drawing the developed territories, also quite lucky. So yeah, I definitely got some help there. Also with having that many defense cards, I maybe was a bit more relaxed about, or could be a bit more flexible about how I can defend against an aggression, allowing myself to just go into warfare, cartography, develop all of those blue technologies. I have still this, now I have the engineering. Maybe I shouldn't have gone for it to still have this all H1 government and blue tech thing going, but sadly now I destroyed it at the end. And now at the end I'm able to score a win here, and that might be a very important one for the standings. But also vanishadow went for a very unique game with all of those Sansu medieval armies, and now maybe with a bit more luck and maybe no economic progress being there, he might have at the end had success with it potentially. Alright, so now with this game finished, we can take a quick look at the current standings. As you can see, now there are actually quite some games finished already. I am at 5 games finished at the moment, 4 points, so with this win I am at least still in a somewhat solid position, but there are only 2 games left for me, and those games will be against Saru and LCF Wakes, who are maybe direct contenders in the fight against relegation, because actually the last 3 places will all be going down. The last place will even go 2 divisions down in this tournament, so at the current position I would get relegated at the end, but with the games against Saru and LCF Wakes I have it in my own hand. I need to win at least one of those to be completely certain. I probably need to win both, or I need to have some luck to stay in the league with only winning one of those games, but it could be possible. So now I still need to win some games, but this win was now quite important to leave myself in range to the non-relegation spots. And vanishadow, with losing this game, it will maybe get a bit tougher to win the season again, but depending on how the tiebreaker with Ben is looking like, he has still some hope to see maybe Ben losing in the last game, and with that, potentially having a shot at winning. Let's see how the direct duel against Ben was. There, vanishadow managed to win, so I think he would win the tiebreaker if both of those players will be sitting at 10 points. Even though he lost the game, he still has the chance to win the league with winning the game against me. I think he again would have already made sure to defend his title, so it will be interesting to see how Ben's last game will be going. And of course, I hope that I maybe can at the end stay in the league, because I actually got relegated out of the Intermezzo and the International Championship in the last seasons, so I don't want to continue this trend now also in the Royal League if possible. Alright, so I hope it was an interesting game for you to watch. I see that it was quite a long video for a 2-player game. I hope I didn't go too much into detail or maybe just talked a lot unnecessary things. I hope it was still interesting for you. And in case you're interested to take a look at this Clicko rating website, I will put a link to it into the description of the video, so definitely check that out. And with that, thanks for watching, have a nice time, and see you in the next video.